me today. It's a bit windy, as you can see in the background here, but I thought it would be nice to do this outside. So you probably noticed that I don't talk about myself very much on social media. If you follow any of my pages on social media, it's very rare that I talk about anything that's personal, and I might talk about some personal stuff in the live streams that we do here when I have a chat with there's a little cat down here, when I have a chat with Didi on the live streams. But generally speaking, I don't really talk about anything particularly personal. I don't know, it's probably because of the way I've been raised and the lack of interest probably in my personal life in general. And this is something that maybe some of you might be able to appreciate when I talk about this particular topic, particularly at this time of year where there are families getting together, and there are a lot of people who find this time of year very lonely around holiday season. And I imagine at this time, particularly with COVID and all that means, the evictions and all of that kind of thing, that there would be a lot of sadness, particularly around this time of year. I'm not really into buying stuff, so this is not my favorite time of year. I just see often see a lot of people feeling isolated because they don't have much connection with their family. They have difficult relationships with their family. So it's a difficult time of year for people. And I had to ask myself why I was going to talk about this. I decided to mention it on my social media page, and there was a lot of very nice, supportive, kind words to me, which I really appreciate. Particularly from somebody like Mana Muhuesh Adley, who is from Mint Press News, and I just find her so inspirational, and she's always been so kind to me behind the scenes and all of that. So I want to thank everybody who responded to this post that I decided to do on social media about an event that happened very recently, and which has affected me very badly. And it's of course these things will pass. This too shall pass. That's the way it is in life. And but I thought I often, if I ever post anything personal, I'll get to this in a minute, what I'm going to talk about. But I often ask myself before I post anything, and I'm sorry about the wind. Sometimes it's just, we live in an island, and sometimes it suddenly picks up, and there's not much I can do about it. I have this, but it doesn't always work because it's very strong winds here in Tasmania. So I often ask myself before I post something that is personal or whatever, what is my reason for doing that? What is the motivation for doing that? Because I feel like motivation is everything, really. And so I thought about it. I thought, why would I talk about this? And then I thought, well, being this time of year when people have difficult relationships with family, and it helps people. It might help somebody who has even a similar situation to what I've had. It might comfort them in some way, or they don't feel alone. And I think that's always a really good thing, when people don't feel alone, don't feel isolated in their sadness or their suffering. And also that families can be really good, but a lot of families can be dysfunctional. I'm not necessarily saying that my family is dysfunctional, but there are some dysfunctional relationships within my family, and we're often presented with on corporate-owned media these sort of happy families. They'll have an argument, then they're making up like 5 minutes later, and then everything is hunky-dory, and they're all communicating and laughing and having big dinners together, but they have these superficial sorts of arguments that end up well. And in real life, often when people in families have arguments or some major disagreements, they usually don't end up well if there's something significant. Minor things, yes, but oftentimes there are people in the same family are just like chalk and cheese. Just because you're biologically related doesn't mean that you're going to have anything in common with these people. So you're sort of thrown together with people that are not, that you have nothing in common with, and you're supposed to all get on and on and on and on, year after year after year after year, and it doesn't really work out very well. You know what I'm saying? And yes, I've still got leftover pollen, leftover hay fever from from the animal agriculture around here, so please excuse me. I may have to put sunglasses on in the middle of this because my eyes are kind of puffy. So I had a personal tragedy, a family tragedy happen it's probably a day and a half ago now. And if I seem flippant at all during this this sort of chat, it's not because I feel flippant about it. It's just that sometimes humor helps deal with a difficult situation. Anyway, and I want to explain why this is. I want to explain something about this relationship, because some things are not they're not explicable, really. They're not explainable, and I just felt like sharing this with you since there is a core of people who follow me and are so supportive, and a shout out to those people. I just think it helps sometimes to talk personally about stuff instead of what I usually do, which is talking about different, imperialism, anti-imperialism, and veganism, and social issues of various kind, world events, and etc. But so a couple of days, almost 2 days ago, my brother Peter suddenly died. He had an accident. It seemed like a minor accident at the time. He lives a couple of states away from me on the mainland in Queensland on the Gold Coast. He has a partner of a wife of 50 plus years, and he has 3 children, my 2 nieces and a nephew, and a number of grandchildren. And he turned 81 a few months ago. He slipped on the boat ramp and he hit his cheek on the boat, I think, and then and he scratched his knees, and he went to the hospital, and they found a very small hematoma in his brain. They weren't concerned about it. It was only small, and they said to come back if he had any problems. They did a CT scan, basically, of his head. So I'm assuming they did all the right things there. Obviously, he had some underlying issue, some underlying problem, maybe in his arteries, maybe they were stiff, maybe there was an aneurysm there somewhere. There's something obviously happened. Anyway, he went home, and then I think a day or so later, in the evening, on the 21st, he suddenly got a very, this is what I was told, a very severe headache, and they called the ambulance. It took quite a while for the ambulance to arrive, so my niece told me. I don't know, but it wouldn't have mattered. But anyway, he walked to the ambulance and got in the ambulance, but in the ambulance he went unconscious, and they intubated him, and then he was on life support, and his family came up, and I don't think they turned the ventilator off, but I think that he just passed away. Obviously, he apparently had a massive bleed and in his brain, and that's what did it, basically. And so anyway, I unfortunately found out about this the following day. Around midday, I sent a message to Peter on his phone, because my mother, she's 104, and she's in my mother adopted me when she was about 44 years old, and she's 104, and she's just recently, in the last 6 weeks, gone into a nursing home. And so I was communicating to Peter something that I thought might be beneficial for my mother, who's basically losing her appetite and all of that. And I think things are, kind of really, really winding up for her quickly. And so I sent him this text message, and then I thought I would include my niece in this, send her the text message I sent to him. And then I received this text message back, and she said, I'm sorry to say this, but Dad has passed away. And she went on a bit further and stuff. And I was so shocked, I was so kind of, I had to do a double take. It would have been way better if she had called me, way better. And also it would have been really nice if somebody had called me when he was dying in hospital. But they didn't, and that's how it is. And so anyway, that's how I found out that he had died. And I was wondering when on earth somebody was going to intend to tell me, because she was texting me this message back while she was visiting my mother in hospital in the aged care home with her sister. And so I don't know, there was just hours and hours of time where somebody could have told me. Now I'll get to why that is in a bit, but and I have no issues with my niece or nieces, like, but obviously I'm not really. This gets reinforced with me time and again that I'm sort of more like a satellite member of the family, because I'm not somebody that is considered, when things like this happen, immediately thinking, oh, we better ring Trisha and tell her that her brother is dying, and or has died. So that sort of was not helpful, and it was very shocking for me to receive that message. After I received that, I immediately called her, because I didn't want to be texting about it. I said to her that I was very, very sorry that had happened. It was shocking and all of that. And I also, whoops, Aoife's trying to jump up on my knee. And I also asked her if she could put me onto my mother, because obviously his mum in hospital, she's already lost a daughter many years ago in 1978 from a drug overdose, and which was more likely a suicide, Tina. And then she loses her son, who's 81, before she dies. And like now, I'm the only child now. And I just thought, I couldn't believe, it was just so sad all around for her, when she's actually really, now her health is really failing. She's been really good up until just the last 2 months. And then to have that happen is just so awful. So I normally ring her every day. We normally ring her, Didi and I, every day. And we've been doing that for years now, and we've visited her for 12 times in the last 13 years since I've been living in Tasmania. And before that, we were doing a lot of caring for her when she had cancer, when she had melanoma stage 4, and we were doing a lot of caring during that time, and took her to the hospital for immunotherapy, which worked really well and has kept that at bay. But we did that for about a year, so we've done as much as we could to assist her, and also when she had colon cancer, we looked after her, and she was very, very sick. But she's really compos mentis and still going along, but her body is saying, okay, I think it's time to wind up. Entropy is winning, and so that's where we're at now. So, but the reason I'm bringing this up is because unfortunately, and this is incredibly sad for me, unfortunately, my brother Peter, he, for some reason, and this is not about anything that I am as a person, but for some reason, right from when I was a child, probably even, well, really from when I was a child, he has never had any interest in me. He's never demonstrated any interest in me. He's been completely absent from my life, and I used to make excuses for it, thinking, well, when I was a child, he was, in his 20s or 30s or whatever, and he's busy, or he's a bank manager in another state or something. He used to move around, so I made excuses for it. But he never ever gave me any birthday cards, really, or acknowledged anything about me, including the dance exams I did every year, and sometimes I do very well, like get honors, or even the I do the concerts every year, dance concerts. He never attended one thing. Never acknowledged me, basically, which I sometimes wonder, why did my parents ever sort of challenge him on that when I was young. And then when I graduated in nursing and I became a registered nurse, and I had a graduation ceremony and then a thing after that, and when I had a 21st birthday, he was not there for the graduation, and I don't think he was there for the 21st birthday party. So you get the idea, and that's how it's been my entire life. So it's right from when I was a young child, and I have two memories in my life of him being nice to me. And one was, he took me out in a boat once, and I don't know why, with a couple of other people, and took me fishing. Unfortunately, I'm vegan, and I look back at that and it makes me sad, because I caught 2 flatheads. Nobody else caught anything, and I caught 2 flatheads just from putting a line over the side of the boat. We were obviously in some deep waters, and so I feel sad about that. But that was one time, and the other time was when I delivered a eulogy for my father in 2012. We flew up, and I gave a eulogy, and he sort of leaned over and touched my shoulder and said, "Good speech." So those are the 2 things that I recall that he's ever said to me that were nice, were sort of something nice. And the other memories I have, sadly, of him are him just from over the decades, anytime he spoke to me, it was to disparage me in front of my mother, and say, things like, one time was a body shaming thing, and another time it was basically mocking me being vegan, that sort of thing. And that was basically any time he spoke to me, which was very rare. Basically ignored me, but any time he did, he would disparage me. Then one day I decided, about 14 years ago or 15 years ago, I decided to confront him on this on the phone. I'm not sure why I did, because I kind of knew the answer anyway, but I just wanted to hear it from his mouth. And I said, and of course I've done therapy about this too, and my therapist said she thought that it was probably because he was jealous, of me being adopted, because this is way before I became an adult. He had completely cut off from me, way before there could be anything about me that he dislikes. So, some members of my family may think, oh, that's because you're this, you were a Buddhist one time, you were a Buddhist nun one time, and he's a really full-on Catholic, and, or a vegan, or, I'm not, I'm not straight, or, whatever. It's just sort of, could be, it could have been those things, but it wasn't. It started long before that. And my therapist in the 90s thought that she thought it was head-scratchingly amazing. And we have never had, my brother Peter and I have never had a falling out over anything. There's been no sort of falling out over anything, no big argument that caused this. It's just something that he's been like this right from as long as I can remember. No birthday cards, no acknowledgement. Even when I'm sick, absolutely nothing. So anyway, so my therapist thought she could only put it down to possibly that he was jealous that I was adopted with my sister, and maybe he had a different upbringing because he was a boy. I don't know, who knows? But anyway, if it was that, then you would think at some point he would get over that. Seriously, at 81 years old, you would think at some point in your life you'd say to yourself, "Geez, that's ridiculous. Me being jealous. I should be happy that they were adopted, and just enjoy the fact that he has 2 other siblings." No. I'd even bought him presents and all that kind of things. Sent him cards from overseas. Sent him cards when he was sick. Right all through. So nothing from him, really. He bought me a $5 diary once, and a bunch of flowers once. That was it. And I think it was this afterthought that he thought, it's Trisha's birthday, if he ever remembered it. So anyway, I'm getting to the point of why I'm telling you this. This isn't about bad-mouthing Peter or anything. I'm just trying to explain the sadness I feel at his death, and that I did love him anyway, despite that. So, and I'm sure that there are people who are watching this might be able to relate to this somewhat. So I confronted him about 15 years ago, because I don't know how it came up, but I said to him, I was laying on the bed, and this was up on the Gold Coast. This is before we moved to Tasmania, and I said, why are you so unfriendly and disinterested in me? And he said, and this is literally a quote, and I might have it slightly incorrect, but it was literally like this: I just have no interest in you. That's what he said to me on the phone. And that was incredibly shocking. I didn't even have a response to that. I just sort of, there are things I could have said, but I was so shocked that someone would be so cruel as to come out and say something like that. Like, I don't even know people who would say that to somebody they didn't know very well, let alone their supposed sister. So I was very shocked, and he sort of said, "Oh, we marched to different drums and stuff." That's how he actually said it. Which, had I been not so shocked, I would have said, "Well, it happened way before you knew anything about me." And talk about judgmental. Anyway, so he was doing that long before I individuated. It was way before I was like, it was from from when I was a young child, very, very young. So. But I didn't. I was so shocked. I basically said something to the effect of, "Oh, well, that's charming," and I sort of wrapped it up fairly quickly after that. That's when I decided I wasn't going to try anymore, and so I decided to write him a letter. I made sure that it was polite, but I just basically sort of explained, what I was going to do from that time onwards, which was basically just not try anymore. and just be civil. And I said, that's what I suggest we do, just be civil. But I wasn't going to try anymore to have any sort of relationship with him, which I had been doing since I was young. I'd basically telling him I was giving up on it. He never responded to that letter, which is another equally interesting thing. So I think that he got it. I sent it to the right address, but he did not respond, which is sort of par for the course, really. When I told my mother, look, he's sort of told me basically that he has no interest in me. He literally said that. So, can you please stop trying to... and then she basically then started to try and push us together, as if she couldn't have recognized that this was happening all my life. But anyway, she then tried to put a gun to his head to get him to fix it. Or she wanted me to fix it, because I'm the girl, that sort of thing. Girls always fix things, I mean, that was her attitude. And then tried to threaten me to fix it. And if I didn't fix it, then, she was going to, I won't say what she was going to do, but, there was coercive things in there. So anyway, then she made a stand in the kitchen and sort of, while she was watching him trying to feign interest in me and saying, oh, you had depression? And I said, yes, I've had depression. And he said, oh, I didn't know that. And I said, yes, that's because you don't talk to me. I said, your niece knows I have depression. And the only reason my niece knew I had depression is because I couldn't go to one of the weddings. I was overseas, but I was also depressed at the time, and I just couldn't go to a wedding how I was feeling. The 90s were very difficult for me, parts of it. I suffered from clinical depression, and so that was one of those times. She sort of understood. He didn't, and sort of that was his only... he was one of his other complaints about me, that I didn't go to his daughter's wedding, one of his daughter's weddings. I went to the others. So that didn't work anyway, because you can't... And I said, Mum, you can't force somebody to care about another person. He doesn't care about me, and you can't force him to care about me. And she just likes everything to be how she wants them to be. And so she kept... And then she made out as if everything was fine. Then, now that she'd put a gun to our heads and made him sort of show interest in me in front of her, then she then decided everything was fine. It was all happy families and stuff. And that was how she's, reacted to the whole thing since then. It's like she fixed it, it's all fixed, and everything's fine. So we just played along with that, as usual. But of course, he knew, even though he knew I had depression, he never ever inquired about any of it. When I had my operations, which I think he knew about, he never inquired about it. It goes on. It's sort of, that's how it is. So then when I found out that he died, and basically had died with carrying that animosity and sort of resentment and contempt toward me for God knows what reason, and he invented a whole bunch of other reasons on top of why, to cover up whatever reason was the original thing. Which he didn't actually say to me, but, the different drum thing means that basically he thinks that my life is, shit, and it's a sort of a bigoted thing. That's what that means. And so, I've just kind of, unfortunately, had to keep interacting with him on occasion, because that's how it is in families. And like even having to interact with him when Mum was is in this aged care home. So to hear that suddenly he's died was shocking, but also incredibly sad, because despite his contempt for me, his animosity, his resentment, or whatever it was, the nasty things that he said to me over the years, when he would lower himself to talk to me, which was very rarely. And I'm framing it that way. I don't know, what he was thinking or feeling at the time, but whatever, it was very unpleasant. Despite all of that, I loved him, because I cared about him. I didn't send him cards or inquire about his health if I heard he was ill, because I thought I should, because to make Mum think I cared about him. I actually did care about him. I don't know if his family know that I care about him, and I'm going to probably write them a couple of letters, not going through any sort of the things I described, but just so that they know that the story, because nobody's really actually looked into it. They just blew it off as, he just told me one day. One of them said, oh, don't worry about it, he's just like that. I mean, no, he's not like that to everybody, no. So the fact that I did love him and I've always tried to have a relationship with him, and he would not. And I think even if Mum had died, he would not have come to the party. He would not have allowed himself to have a relationship with me. He'd see that as sort of, I don't know what he would have seen it as. So I knew he was never going to do that. And the fact that I know that, but maybe it might have been a little bit different because he wouldn't have had, after Mum died, he wouldn't have had what he felt like was a gun to his head to pretend to care about me. He may have actually been able to relax, and he would have been able to get out from under that heavy yoke, which was trying to always pretend like he cared about me in front of my mother. So we never got the opportunity to do that, which I'm very sad about. I think it would have been nice for him to have had a few years where, after Mum died, where he wouldn't have to pretend to care about me, and also that he didn't have to worry about Mum and her health and everything. So I'm sad about that happened for him. And I'm sad for his partner, that his partner did not get to experience some life with him where he wasn't sort of resentful that he had to have something to do with me. There are people who think I'm a nice person. I think I'm a nice person, and I think he really missed out on what could have been a very supportive relationship, a very supportive friendship. And I wanted that. I went one day when I was very naive, when I just turned 17, and I was working near him when he was in the bank, working as a bank manager. I thought I'd go across and say hello to him. And I think there was something that we had to do, or there was something that had to be done. I can't remember. And I just thought to myself, isn't this nice? My brother, he works across the road, and sometimes I can go and say hello, or it's sort of like kind of a bonding thing, And I just remember thinking, oh, isn't this nice, to have an older brother? And we're finally, able to. I finally have some access to him in a way. You know what I mean? Instead of his complete absence up until I was 17. I was thinking to myself, oh, my brother. He was probably 38 at the time. I was thinking how nice. He's just across the road, and this last 17 years I haven't seen him, but we can have some sort of a relationship now. And that's what I thought, and I feel sad for that person. When I was younger, my younger self, thinking that about him, thinking that things would be different, and it never was. And this is when I was 17. I hadn't done anything. I hadn't been anywhere. I just started work before I started nursing, and so I feel sad for that younger me, because it was never to happen, and now he's dead, and there is no chance, not that there was a chance of fixing it, but there's no chance of even having a different kind of relationship where we could actually maybe we sort out the business of wills and things after Mum goes, and then we say our goodbyes. In a way, we probably wouldn't actually say goodbye, but we'd both know that we're never really going to hear from one another again. There's no reason to. And but he could have, maybe he would have relaxed and thought, well, maybe I can be somewhat civil, or even maybe a little polite and friendly, because we're probably never going to have anything to do with one another again. So, sadly, and this is the thing about not living in the future, which I tried to do, not living in the future and ruminating on the past. Even though I've done this the last couple of days, because I think it's a way of processing things, and it's not. I don't believe, and of course, being in the now, being present, doesn't mean you deny your feelings. It just means you don't tell lots and lots of stories about all of that and get into the whole conceptualizing and the storytelling, and the poor me and all this kind of stuff. I did do some living in the future, and I'm thinking, well, when he doesn't feel like he has to pretend in front of my mother anymore, maybe he'll be a little bit different, and we can have a pleasant parting, and he will have some time where he doesn't have to be feeling resentful because he has to have things to do with me. And I thought I just think that would have been nice for him, and not to have to be worried about Mum, even though he was a very dutiful son and did all sorts of good things for Mum, which I'm very grateful for. While I wasn't there, while I've been in Tasmania, he kind of took over in a way from me. I spent 9 years or so, helping out Mum, and and along with my partner when we finally got together. And then so that's the sad story of a relationship that was this was a completely one-sided. Sometimes things can be one-sided. Sometimes conflicts with people can be one-sided, and I would take responsibility for something if something had occurred but it started so early, and there was never any. I was nothing but polite and friendly to him, and did my best to try and forge some kind of relationship, and it was not meant to be. And that's sort of, this is the sadness. And also because I did care about him, and I think he knew it, but I did care about him and I did love him, and that's why, I've been crying a lot the last since it happened, and also sadly my only memories are really unpleasant ones, except for those two that I mentioned. I won't be going to the funeral, which is a couple of thousand miles away because of COVID. I don't think it's. I don't feel. I don't really want to be traveling particularly when there's just an outbreak that's happened on the mainland, and it's often planes related. What happens, people coming in from overseas or something like that. And also, I would be hard pressed to be able to do a eulogy, also. But the thing is, it's really more the COVID and stuff, and I'm not sure really whether his family would be that happy with me being there, since I didn't really have a relationship with him, and they don't really understand why, I think, which is unfortunate. No one's ever talked to me about it. And also, like I say, I don't think they particularly see me as part of the family either. And I think that's because I'm different. I'm not a mainstream sort of person. There's a whole different things about me that are different from them, and that should be okay, but it doesn't seem to be. I'm okay with them being very mainstream and stuff. That's fine, but that doesn't seem to work both ways. So basically, none of them seem to be particularly interested in whether I'm okay. They haven't asked me if I'm okay, whether I feel how I feel about anything. But I've been asking how other people are, and that is also another part of my history. Growing up, where it's been a kind of denial in some ways of my existence, of who I choose to be with, what I do, whether it's music or whatever I do. It's a complete lack of interest on the whole with anything about me. There's sort of invisibility basically. And I'm sure there are people who are watching who probably can identify with this. With some parts of it, I'm sure, because, as I said, there are more dysfunctional families and more families that don't get on than there are families that do get on. Way more, I think, than is actually realized. I mean, I find most people I know have a sort of a strained kind of relationship with their families. It's very rare to find people that don't. You may be one of the lucky ones that does, and that's great. But that is not my experience. And if you are one of the unlucky ones, or one of the more common situations where you have a strained relationship with your family, I mean, you don't have to spend holiday seasons with them. The family is whoever is supportive of you, whoever is friendly, who is kind. They are family. I have people I could consider family online that I will probably never meet, who are incredibly supportive of me, who are interested. I've had more kindness from people online in these very brief times that I ever reveal anything about myself than I've had my entire life from all my external family put together. More interest and stuff like that. And these people online, you may never meet them, but they're still real people behind those usernames. They're still real people, and they have feelings, and I value those people. I value the people. I value the people who come to the live streams. I value the people here on Faint Signals from Vega. I value the people who, leave comments, who, even the ones that disagree with me, they take the time. I value I value the people that do all the left journalism and are struggling with algorithms and money at the moment with COVID. I value a lot of people who I probably will never meet, and they've been very kind to me, and so I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you very much for being there and for supporting this channel. I know this has been a bit of a long yarn, and I don't know if it was actually, sometimes it's hard to actually put feelings into words, but I've been incredibly sad, and I also feel a little bit PTSD from sort of thinking about the sad things that have been said to me over the years, and the fact that now Peter is gone, and we'll never ever be able to have any kind of change, even if that was possible, which I don't think it was, but maybe it might have changed just a little bit, and now he was just suddenly taken, and that's very sad to me. I feel a loss, even though he wasn't there at all in my life in a way, and when he was, it wasn't good, but I feel this loss, and I've had good thoughts for him. I've had good thoughts for his family, for his partner. It's very sad. I called his partner and I expressed my deep sadness to her. I said it's very shocking, and I think she appreciated that. And that's it is as it is, really. That's something that I tell myself often now, rather than wishing it was something else. I usually just say to myself, it is as it is, and I have good thoughts for those people, and I have to say about Peter, may he rest in peace and love, and may he feel the oneness of everything.